So along with the other games that released today, there's a new entry in the Need for Speed long franchise. And interestingly, this is the 10th Need for Speed game that I've personally played. Some of the older ones, and then a huge gap, and then pretty much all of the newer ones since like Most Wanted. And so I'm gonna get straight to the point. This game isn't great. Now I want to be clear. I didn't play the whole game. I didn't play a lot of the game. I played 3 hours of the game because that's as far as I could get, because I literally fell asleep playing it. So let me talk about the things that make this game incredibly boring. And my problem here is not what you think. It's not the new stuff. You'd think it'd be the new, the flashy, the over the top, the stupid cell shaded stuff. It's none of that. Everything new is actually really decent. And so let's get into it. So like every good racing game, it has a character customizer. Even Forza does this. I don't understand why. I don't care what my guy looks like. It doesn't matter. I don't need new clothes and new outfits, and it doesn't matter what my guy looks like to see him at the end of the race when I ended up in last place, all sad that he came in last for the 2 seconds. I don't care. You don't even really see the back of his head in the car. So this is dumb. They wasted time on this, and it's not that it's that fleshed out and detailed. It's not. But this is something that you just don't need in the game at all. Again, not criticizing too much here, but just something I thought I'd bring up. And also, like every other car game and racing game ever, it gives you the option to choose between 3 cars at the beginning, pretty much your 3 different classes between muscle, high-end, luxury sports cars, and then your kind of retro sports car. So then it goes straight into the gameplay of just racing. Now, I'm not going to talk about too much of all of the old stuff. It's a racing game. You get in a car and you race. That's a majority of the mechanics. Now I'll talk about a couple of things, obviously. One, the launch system here that they have at the beginning, like in frickin' Mario Kart, decent. It's new to at least my experience with Need for Speed. I typically take a gap between each game, so like I didn't play the last one. And so from my experience, this is a new system. It works fine. It's something that adds a little bit more skill to it, but something that I don't like, a change that I absolutely hate, is the way NOS works. So Need for Speed has always been a bit more arcadey than something like Forza, right? But typically you have your NOS bar, like you see in the bottom there, the blue bar. When it fills up, you hold A, you go faster, that's it. But here they decided to split it. You have your NOS bar, which is the blue bar that you build, and then you have a separate bar that you also build at the same time as the blue bar, but can only be used and is lost when not getting skills that contribute towards the NOS. So for example, drifting, close calls, driving in the oncoming lane, drafting, all of that good stuff, you get NOS for it. And the problem with this is that it almost forces you to use this NOS, because the blue NOS, while in other Need for Speed games would just be your natural, normal NOS bar, here, it's not great. It gives you a bit of a speed boost, but that yellow one that you lose is really the one that gives you that big boost of acceleration and speed. And so it almost forces you to use it in situations where you don't want to use it, because the biggest earner of your NOS, at least in the way I play, is going to be drifting. And you lose, again, this bar when you're not drifting. So you're stuck in like a 40-degree angle having to use this bar. Or just as you come out of drift and then you oversteer. So yes, it adds a level of skill to the actual racing a bit, but I found it a bit annoying. It's a bit just too much. Just give me my normal NOS bar, either whether it's a continuous boost or segmented boosts, I don't care, but don't give me something that I lose if I don't use it immediately. Another gameplay problem I had was the difficulty itself. I left it on a default difficulty, and I'm not great, but I'm not bad. Like, I can't beat the game with like the Donkey Kong drums, but I play on well above average in most racing games, right? And so my problem here is there were races that were real easy. I mean, first place, like I was on my phone after 2 minutes. I was so far ahead of everybody. And then other races that no matter how hard I tried, and I actually replayed them so I wouldn't sound like an idiot, I don't think it's possible to get first place. I played them 5-6 times, the same race, over and over and over and over again, and I got pretty damn close to perfect. I mean, I couldn't have done much better. And the only fault I had that could have possibly been holding me back was my starting car. Otherwise, it's just impossible to win the race itself. So one more final big problem that I had with the game before I get into a lot of positives is that when you play a racing game, you want an equal amount of both visual customization and mechanic customization. This is like, take Call of Duty for example, probably the most well-known shooting franchise. You want to be able to customize not only the camo and the stickers and the charm and the decals and the gun screen and all of that stuff that you have on your gun, as well as the sight and the barrel and the magazine and the grip and the stock and all of that stuff that actually affects the performance. And so like I said, I played this game for a little bit over 3 hours, and I feel like I made decent progress. I mean, I did 10 plus races, I would say, and I never got an option to buy a new car, to use a different car, or to upgrade the car that I was using other than visually. And the problem with that, and you can use past games, especially with franchises like Need for Speed that are so lengthy and just spanned such a long time and changed so many times, to predict a game's general flow and just overall length of the game. Need for Speed games aren't long. Now, if you want to collect every car or do 3 stars or gold or whatever on every single mission, yes, that you can spend a lot of time in them and upgrading every car and all of that stuff. But typically just the main story, which is what I normally tend to play, they're not that long. And the problem with that is that when you get this far in and there's no customization at all, I'm bored. When I play something, for example, Forza, that I have hundreds of hours between the Forza games, just Horizon itself, right? When I play that game, I want to buy a car, use it for like 2-3 races, and then use something else, right? I don't want to sit here and use the same exact car over and over and over and over and over again. That's the point of these games having so many cars and so many options and all that stuff. Now, the customization is good, right? The visual customization to change your fender and your grille and your hood and your bumper and your exhaust and the underglow and the windows and the mirrors, all that's great. You put stickers and decals, that's all good, that's all great. It does what it needs to do, it does what other racing games do. But the problem is that I can't change the performance. So essentially, I'm just stuck driving the same damn car. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't other cars and there isn't upgrades within the game to increase the performance of the car. Obviously there is. But at the length that I got to in the game, I should have already gotten to it. You should never be that far into a game and not introduce a core mechanic like that. Okay, I've got through all of my negatives. Let me talk about the positives. The things that I would have said wouldn't be positive are, interestingly, the positives. So, let's start off with the one that probably everyone I've seen complaining about, is the cel-shaded, all the effects when drifting, when boosting, when jumping, all of that stuff, when braking. It doesn't look that bad. It's not that distracting. It looks distracting when you're watching a trailer or watching other people play or watching gameplay because you're not doing anything and it just seems over the top and like it's flashed that you're paying attention to, and also because it's new. Play this game for 45 minutes and you'll forget it's there. You can also just turn it off, but I forgot about it. I was gonna hate it. This is something that it looks awful. When I watch the actual gameplay back, or when I watch a trailer, or when I watch somebody else's gameplay, I hate it. It's disgusting. I think it looks bad. I think it was a bad decision. But when you're playing the actual game, you do not notice it. I promise you, it's not as obnoxious as it looks, and that's just something that you have to take my word for and play it yourself. It's not as bad. Now, there is customization for this. Didn't touch it because I don't care, because again, I didn't really notice it. I kind of just put it on the back burner, and you can just shut it off if you want to ignore it completely. Now, a mechanic I do want to talk about that's actually really cool is the way they do money and kind of wanted levels within this game. So much like something like Gotham Knights, there's a day system here. And so when you start playing, let's say it's daytime, you have races 1, 2, and 3 to do. And you have your own money at stake here. So race 1 could have a difficulty 1 and 2 with different buy-in levels that give you different level rewards. And if you win, obviously you get that money. If you lose that money. You can do different buy-ins, you can choose what you want, you don't have to do them all. Now obviously for story reasons there's some that you have to do because you can't just not play the damn game, but you can choose to do whichever ones you want. The lower stakes ones that are obviously easier and give you less money, or the ones that, you know, you have to put more money down for, but you'll get more money for in the end. So this was something that's interesting, and tied in with that money system is your wanted level. So as you continue through the day and carrying over into the night, you'll have this wanted level, and your money that you have during the day, as you see up there in the top right corner, will be considered at risk. This is the money that you've earned during that day or during that night before you've gone back to a safe house to store it. And so anything you win from that race, if you get busted by the police, you lose. They take the money, and essentially you're back at zero and you just wasted that day. Now, when you go back to a safe house and fast travel or customize your car or change cars or progress in the story in any way at one of these safe houses, you bank your money. You can see that green number there, and then you have that permanently, obviously, until you spend it. So this is something interesting that as you continue and as you play, your wanted level goes higher, and the police will try harder and harder to try to take your money and stop you. So you have to find a balance of doing those high level races that give you a lot of cash and being able to get away from the police so that you don't lose it all. Now, when you play at night, obviously the police are on you more, and that wanted level is inflated a bit. But overall, again, I didn't get that far into the game, but it wasn't anything that the police AI were too crazy for me. You just take a turn around the corner and then take another turn around the corner and they just lose you. So it's not anything too incredibly complicated or advanced, but it's a good system. It's something new and unique that's different from other games. So how does Need for Speed fare overall against other racing games? Well, if you're looking for something more arcadey and less simulator-like than Forza, for example, like always, this is where you want to be. It's very arcadey, it feels good, and it looks cool, right? And if that's what you're going for, and the over-the-top, cel-shaded cartoon graphics coming out doesn't bother you that much, along with just having to wait a bit to get to the meat of the game, if you just want to relax and play a fun racing game, you're gonna have no problem here, like Need for Speed always does. It's just fine racing simulator, perfect, right? And so that's kind of where my score is for this game. It's fine, right? It'd be at a 6 if, the graphics were a bit better. The game, honestly, doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad. And partially it's because you're comparing it to stuff like Forza. You are comparing a game to probably the best looking game ever made. So, it's tough competition. I understand that. But you can do better with a racing game. Yes, there's simulated ray tracing, and it doesn't look bad, like I said, but you could pass this for a AAA open world game and not know it's a racing game. So overall, I think the game, if the progression and the speed of things were a bit quicker, would sit at a 6 for me. But because it's going for that arcade feeling, but moves at a rate like a much slower game, I'm going to put it at a 5, right at average. It's fine. It does what it needs to do. Honestly, go play this on trial on Game Pass and get your 10 hours in, right, through EA Access or whatever the time limit is now, and you'll probably get your fix of racing game for the year. Or just go play Forza Horizon 5. Either one works. Don't think you need to be dropping $70 on this, or especially anything more than that, but that's just my opinion. You guys let me know what you think of this game down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.